Chosen one, before anything changes on the outside, something subtle has already begun to reorganize within you. Not loudly, not urgently, but deliberately. You can feel it if you pause long enough. A quiet shift in how you hold your breath. A stillness where restlessness used to live. This is not about numbers yet. Not about outcomes or confirmation. It's about awareness. Listen closely. There are moments when life doesn't push forward. It adjusts its footing. And right now, the ground beneath your decisions is being recalibrated. You may not see evidence. You may not feel excitement. What you feel instead is restraint. A sense that acting too quickly would be misaligned. That checking too soon would disturb the timing. That waiting this time has purpose. This is important. For a long while, effort felt disconnected from results. You showed up. You stayed consistent. Yet the return never matched the energy you gave. That wasn't failure. That was containment. Certain forms of growth can't arrive while you're still reaching for them. They require you to stand still long enough to recognize where value is actually meant to flow. And something has begun to redirect that flow now. Quietly, you may notice your relationship with money feels different lately. Less charged. Less emotional. Not because everything is resolved, but because the noise around it has softened. This is the beginning of alignment. When alignment starts, urgency fades. The need to constantly monitor loosens. Control gives way to clarity. You are not being asked to stop caring. You're being asked to stop chasing. There is a difference. The shift unfolding around you isn't dramatic because it doesn't need to convince you. It's precise. It's measured, like a scene where the camera doesn't move, but the light changes just enough for the truth to come into focus. You're standing in that light now. You've been marked by patience you didn't know you were developing, by discernment shaped through waiting, by restraint learned when impulsive action would have cost you more than you realized. That restraint is now an asset. Notice how your instincts feel sharper, how certain options no longer tempt you, how the urge to react has been replaced with the ability to respond. This isn't accidental. Heaven doesn't rearrange resources loudly. It aligns the person first. Before provision moves, posture must settle. Before flow changes, perception must mature. That is what's happening here. You are being positioned to act from steadiness, not anxiety. From awareness, not impulse. From alignment, not urgency. This is why the shift feels quiet. Anything that requires pressure to arrive is not ready to stay. What's meant for you approaches without forcing you to move out of character. Let this land. There will be a moment soon when clarity replaces hesitation. When you'll know when to move, and more importantly, when not to. That knowing will feel calm, grounded, unshakable. Not because everything is visible, but because you are. This is the opening of a different chapter. One that doesn't announce itself with noise. One that asks you to listen before you act. And there is more unfolding beneath the surface than you've been shown yet. Not all at once. Not prematurely. Just enough to prepare you for what comes next. Chosen one. The quiet you're experiencing now is not emptiness. It's calibration. Nothing feels rushed because nothing is meant to be forced. This pause is intentional. A space where your instincts are being tuned. You may notice that your reactions have slowed. not from hesitation, but from clarity. Where you once felt pressure to decide quickly, you now feel permission to wait, to observe, to let the moment reveal itself. This is a shift in authority. For a long time, circumstances dictated your next move. Bills, expectations, timelines, they all spoke loudly. Now something else has taken the lead. Your inner sense of timing. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply knows. Listen closely. There is a difference between being delayed and being held back for precision. What you experienced before wasn't resistance, it was refinement. You were learning discernment, learning when to move, and when movement would actually cost you alignment. That lesson is now active. You may feel less reactive to external signals, less tempted by quick fixes, less impressed by urgency. This isn't detachment. It's maturity. Financial energy responds differently to maturity. It recognizes steadiness. It respects boundaries. It avoids desperation and aligns with calm certainty. That's why the shift doesn't feel explosive. It feels grounded. You're no longer scanning for signs. You're noticing patterns, subtle ones. How certain conversations keep resurfacing. How opportunities seem to approach indirectly. How ideas arrive fully formed without panic attached. These are signals, not instructions. Heaven rarely hands you answers. It sharpens your perception instead. And right now, your perception is becoming precise. The chapter opening before you isn't about sudden gain. It's about sustainable flow. The kind that doesn't require you to abandon your values. The kind that integrates smoothly into your life. Without demanding explanation. You were never meant to sprint toward stability. You were meant to arrive there intact. That's why your path looked different. Why shortcuts didn't appeal to you. Why progress often came quietly. It wasn't slow. It was exact. Notice how your sense of worth feels less negotiable now. How you're less willing to exchange peace for momentum. How clarity has replaced urgency. This is alignment locking in. The spotlight hasn't turned fully yet, but the stage is set. Lighting adjusted. Timing rehearsed. You are standing in the right place, even if the scene hasn't started. And when it does, it won't demand frantic action. It will invite deliberate movement. You'll know when to step forward, because it will feel obvious, not pressured. This is how provision moves when it's meant to stay. It approaches without destabilizing you. It arrives without asking you to compromise. You don't need to check constantly. You don't need to anticipate every outcome. Awareness has replaced vigilance. Let this land. Because the next phase won't announce itself with noise. It will show up as certainty, a clear inner signal that says now. And when that signal arrives, you'll realize this quiet stretch was not a pause at all. It was the moment everything aligned, just before motion began. Chosen one, what's approaching you now is moving with intention, not urgency. You can sense it in how calm your thoughts have become, in how your body no longer braces for impact, in how anticipation has softened into trust. This is not the absence of desire. It's the presence of readiness. Something has already decided to meet you where you are, not where you were anxious, not where you were reaching. Here. You didn't arrive at this steadiness by accident. It was shaped through restraint, through choosing integrity when shortcuts appeared, through holding your ground when movement felt tempting. That choice changed the direction of things you couldn't see. There is a dignity to how this next phase unfolds. No rush, no scramble, no need to announce yourself. What belongs to you doesn't require pursuit. It recognizes alignment instantly. This is why your energy feels quieter but stronger. Why your confidence doesn't need reinforcement. Why patience no longer feels like delay. You are not waiting anymore. You are positioned. Watch how decisions begin to feel lighter. How clarity replaces calculation. How the right option stands out without effort. This is flow. Not because everything is easy, but because resistance has stepped aside. There will be moments soon that confirm this shift. Not dramatic ones. Ordinary moments that feel unusually precise. A conversation that lands exactly when it needs to. An opening that fits without forcing adjustment. Support that appears without explanation. These are not coincidences. They are responses. If at any point these words feel aligned with something unfolding in you, you're welcome to leave a quiet comment below, not for visibility but simply to acknowledge the moment you're in. And if you sense that someone else might find steadiness in this message, you can share it with them in your own time. Staying connected to future chapters is also an option, only if it feels natural to you. There is no requirement here, only resonance. Now let this return to stillness. Because the most important part of this shift is not what arrives next, but how calmly you receive it. You are no longer measuring progress by speed. You are recognizing it by fit. What's meant for you will integrate smoothly. It won't disrupt your peace. It won't ask you to become someone else. It will meet you as you are now, grounded, aware, aligned. This is the maturity of the path you're on. The scene ahead doesn't open with noise. It opens with clarity. You won't miss it. You won't need reassurance. You won't second-guess the timing. You'll simply know. And when that knowing settles in, you'll understand why everything slowed down before it began to move. Why the quiet mattered. Why listening came before action. Stay present with this feeling. Let it anchor itself. Because what unfolds next will feel less like surprise and more like recognition. Chosen one, the clarity settling into you now didn't arrive overnight. It arrived because you learned how to listen without reaching. This phase is quieter than the ones before it. Not because less is happening, but because less needs to be announced. You may notice how your inner dialogue has changed. Fewer arguments, fewer rehearsals, more space between thoughts. That space is not empty. It's organized. This is where alignment stabilizes. When things were uncertain, your attention scattered. You watched for signs. You searched for reassurance. You tried to predict outcomes before they arrived. Now, prediction feels unnecessary. You are learning to move with timing instead of ahead of it. There's a difference. Timing doesn't hurry you. It invites you to notice when effort aligns with ease. When action feels clean instead of costly. You're beginning to recognize that difference instinctively. This is why choices feel simpler lately. Not because the options disappeared, but because the right one carries less noise. Noise fades when alignment takes hold. You may also feel a subtle separation from what used to pull at you. Old worries, old comparisons, old definitions of success. They don't grip the same way. That's not loss. It's release. What once demanded constant attention no longer recognizes you. This is how chapters close properly. Without confrontation, without drama, without needing proof. They simply stop asking for energy. What replaces them is steadiness. A grounded awareness that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances. A sense that you can pause without falling behind. A knowing that progress doesn't require tension. This steadiness is the foundation of what comes next. Because the next movement isn't about acceleration. It's about sustainability. What approaches you now is designed to stay, to integrate, to support rather than disrupt. That's why it doesn't arrive loudly. Anything that belongs in your life long term arrives with respect. You may feel moments where nothing appears to change externally, yet internally, everything feels settled. That's alignment completing its work, like a structure finishing its cure before weight is added, like a signal locking into frequency before transmission begins. You're in that moment. Pay attention to how your body responds now, how your breath deepens, how your shoulders relax, how your focus sharpens without strain. These are confirmations, even if they aren't dramatic. Heaven rarely confirms with spectacle, confirms with peace. The peace you're feeling isn't an ending. It's a readiness that no longer needs validation. Soon, movement will resume, naturally, at the pace it was always meant to have. And when it does, you won't feel rushed into it. You'll feel met. This is the difference between chasing momentum and standing where momentum finds you. You're standing there now. Stay with this steadiness a little longer. Let it become familiar. Let it become your reference point, because what comes next will ask you to move, not from urgency, but from certainty. And certainty doesn't shout. It simply steps forward. When the moment opens, chosen one, the movement that follows certainty never feels rushed. It feels inevitable. You may notice a quiet confidence settling into your decisions now. Not boldness, not excitement, just clarity. This is what happens when alignment becomes familiar. The need to explain yourself fades. The urge to justify timing disappears. You no longer feel behind or ahead, only present. Presence is powerful. From here, action doesn't require motivation. It arises naturally, like stepping forward when a door is already open. You're beginning to recognize that effort and strain are not the same thing. Effort can be clean. Strain is a signal. And you are no longer responding to strain. This is why the next steps won't exhaust you. They will engage you. They will feel proportional to who you are now. Notice how your attention behaves, how it stays with what matters longer, how distractions lose their pull more quickly. This isn't discipline. It's alignment holding its ground. You may sense opportunities approaching in quieter forms than you imagined. Not dramatic offers, not sudden announcements, but practical openings, natural integrations, moments that fit without rearranging your life. This is intentional. What arrives next is designed to respect the stability you've built. It won't require you to abandon your rhythm. It will work within it. This is how sustainable growth begins. You're no longer proving readiness. You're demonstrating it through how calmly you move. There may be moments when you're tempted to question the subtlety of it all, to wonder if more should be happening by now, if the shift should feel louder. But subtlety is not absence, it's precision. Large changes that last rarely announce themselves early. They integrate quietly, then reveal their impact over time. You're standing at the beginning of that integration. Pay attention to what feels natural now. What choices feel obvious. What paths no longer require persuasion. These are the markers of alignment maturing. You don't need confirmation from outside sources. Your inner reference point has stabilized. That's why comparison feels irrelevant. Why urgency feels foreign. Why trust feels embodied rather than imagined. This is the calm before visible momentum, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is finally moving together. When movement resumes outwardly, it will feel smooth, coordinated, unforced. You'll recognize it not by surprise, but by familiarity, like stepping into a role you've already rehearsed internally. This is the reward of patience carried without resentment, of faith held without spectacle, of alignment chosen when alternatives were louder. Stay grounded here, because the next unfolding won't ask you to rush toward it. It will meet you exactly where you are, steady, aware, ready. And when you look back, you'll see this quiet stretch not as waiting, but as the moment everything finally aligned, before the visible shift began. Chosen one, what emerges after alignment never feels like a surprise. It feels like arrival. Not arrival at a destination, but arrival into yourself. You may notice how your sense of direction has sharpened without effort, how decisions no longer drain you, how clarity shows up before doubt has time to speak. This is not because the path became simpler. It's because you became steadier. Steadiness changes how life responds. You're no longer scanning the horizon for reassurance. You're noticing what's already within reach, what's already adjusting itself around you. This is the phase where movement becomes mutual. You don't chase openings. Openings recognize you. You don't force momentum. Momentum aligns with your pace. There is a quiet cooperation taking place now, between your awareness and what's unfolding, between your readiness and what's approaching. That cooperation feels calm. You may find yourself acting without rehearsing, speaking without second-guessing, choosing without revisiting old fears. These aren't impulsive moments. They are integrated ones. They come from knowing where you stand. This is why the next developments won't feel overwhelming. They will feel appropriate, measured, respectful of the balance you've cultivated. You're learning that growth doesn't always expand your world outwardly first. Sometimes it stabilizes the center before anything else moves. That stabilization is complete now. Notice how your energy holds, how it doesn't spike with anticipation or sink with uncertainty, how it stays consistent even when outcomes aren't fully visible. This consistency is a signal. It tells what's aligning with you that you are safe to build with, that you won't collapse under responsibility, that you won't lose yourself in motion. That matters, because what integrates into your life next is meant to stay longer than anything before it. You don't need to prepare for it consciously. Preparation has already happened. Through patience, through restraint, through choosing alignment over immediacy. Those choices shaped you quietly. And now the environment is responding. There may be moments ahead that look ordinary from the outside, but feel significant internally. Moments where you recognize the shift only after it has already passed. That's how alignment confirms itself. Not with spectacle, with continuity. Nothing breaks. Nothing destabilizes. Things simply begin to work together. You'll sense it in how your days flow, in how problems resolve without escalation, in how support appears without negotiation. This is not luck. It's coherence. Everything moving in the same direction. Stay present with this coherence. Let it become your new baseline, because from here on, progress will feel less like effort and more like participation. You are no longer pushing the story forward. You are stepping into the part that was already written for you. And as the scene continues to unfold, you won't need reminders. You'll recognize it by how naturally you belong there. This is not the end of the unfolding. It's the point where it begins to move visibly, without losing the calm that brought you here.